All right, ready to dive in. We've got a ton of stuff on copy editors today. You really piqued our curiosity with this stack of resources. Someone wants to get into the field or at least figure out what it's all about.
What's interesting is how many people, they hear copy editor and think, oh, just fixing typos. But it's so much more than that?
Right. Like that whole invisible hand concept really struck me. Making the writing sing without the reader even knowing someone's back there fine-tuning it.
Exactly. Imagine like you're trying to read an article and it's just dense and poorly written. Ugh, it's painful. A good copy editor is the difference between that and a smooth, enjoyable read. This career guide from RoleCatcher puts it really well. They make sure the writer's intent shines through. They're taking something good and making it great.
And they're doing that everywhere now, right? Not just at book publishers.
Oh, yeah. Journalism, advertising, even like tech companies with all those manuals and help articles. Clear writing. It's essential.
You'd think with self-publishing and AI writing tools becoming so prevalent, maybe copy editors would be less in demand, but this guide says the opposite.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I think it's because we're just inundated with content now more than ever. That means that good content, well-written content, it's more valuable than ever. It's about cutting through the noise.
So copy editors are like the gatekeepers of quality in a way, making sure the good stuff rises to the top. But their world must be changing so fast with all the technology available now.
Oh, absolutely. RoleCatcher really gets into that. They talk about how digital tools are changing the game.
Hmm.
Grammar and style checkers are getting so much more sophisticated. And then there's project management software so they can work with writers remotely. They even mentioned AI-powered tools like helping with fact-checking and suggesting different phrases.
Okay, now that's what I'm talking about. So are these tools replacing human copy editors, or are they just giving them superpowers?
It's a great question, right? The guide seems to be leaning towards augmentation rather than replacement. Like, sure, AI can catch a missing comma, but can it really understand the nuances of language, tone, context the way a human can? I don't know about that.
Yeah, that makes sense. There's an art to good writing, an intuition that I'm not sure a machine can replicate, at least not yet.
Exactly. And the guide highlights that over 70% of employers, they still prioritize those strong native language skills over like technical expertise
Right.
with certain tools. It's like that deep understanding of language, you can't replace it. But being able to use these new technologies, yeah, that's becoming more and more important too.
It's like having a toolkit, you know? You need the right tools, but it's the skilled craftsperson who knows how to use them effectively. Speaking of skills, one thing that surprised me in the guide was some of the less obvious things employers look for in a copy editor. It's not all red pens and grammar rules. It's not just being a grammar whiz, which is kind of what I always pictured,
Hmm.
like sales and marketing knowledge. What's up with that?
Right. It is interesting. But it makes sense when you think about it. They're not just fixing commas. They're shaping a message, usually for a specific audience.
Yeah.
So having that marketing sense helps them make sure it lands with the right people.
Oh, totally. I didn't even think about it that way. It's like they're a part marketing consultant, part grammar guru.
Exactly. And that ties into another interesting thing from this guide, how being a copy editor, it's not just one job anymore. It's like there's a whole career path, different stages.
Okay, now this is where it gets really interesting for anyone listening who wants to be a copy editor. The guide actually breaks down the different stages, even has example profiles. It's like choose your own adventure, copy editor edition.
Right. So you start as a copy editor assistant, real fundamentals,
Yeah.
proofreading for spelling, grammar, punctuation. They're catching all the little stuff, making sure the formatting is consistent.
It's like laying the groundwork,
Right.
right? Making sure that foundation is solid. And there's this little detail in the example profile that caught my eye. At this level, they're also like maintaining databases of reference materials and style guides.
Oh, good catch. So even early on, organization, attention to detail, it's huge. They're not just fixing things, they're a resource.
Okay, so you've mastered the basics. What's the next rung on the ladder?
Junior copy editor. Still honing those skills, but taking on more. They're thinking about style, tone, how the whole piece flows, not just individual sentences.
It's like going from line cook to sous chef. Now you're starting to get a feel for how all the flavors work together.
I like that analogy. And the guide's example profile for this stage, it mentions developing expertise in specific subjects. So maybe you get known for being really good with technical writing or marketing materials, even creative stuff.
So you find your niche. You become the person for a certain style or industry. That's smart. So what happens when they're ready for the big leagues?
That's when you hit the copy editor level. Now you're really cooking.
Yeah.
It's fact-checking, developing editorial guidelines, even mentoring those junior editors.
They've gone from sous chef to head chef, running the whole kitchen. And their example profile in here, it talks about ensuring accuracy and upholding the publication's reputation. Those are high stakes.
Absolutely. They are the guardians of quality now. And what's really cool is how the focus shifts, from individual contributions to more of a leadership role.
Which brings us to the peak of this mountain we're climbing. Senior copy editor. This is like Jedi Master level, right?
Hey, top of their game. Overseeing whole projects, managing teams of copy editors, staying ahead of all the latest trends. It's a very strategic position.
And their profile mentions expert level editing of complex and technical content. Like, you're not just good, you're the authority.
Exactly. Setting the bar for everyone else. But here's a really important point for your listeners. This isn't a dead end. From senior copy editor, you can move into content strategy, management, maybe even an editorial leadership role.
So it's not just a job, it's a launch pad for a whole career in shaping how information gets communicated.
Exactly. And speaking of which, this RoleCatcher guide you gave us,
Yeah.
it doesn't stop at just describing the skills. It has some really practical stuff on how to actually land a copy editor job.
Okay, let's get into that. This AI-powered CV analysis they talk about, I gotta be honest, that sounds kind of wild to me. AI looking at your resume and telling you how to make it better. I mean, that's kind of amazing, but also a little creepy, right?
It is pretty wild. But RoleCatcher is onto something here.
Mhm.
Remember how we were talking about how copy editors need to understand their audience? Well, when you're applying for a job, the recruiter or that hiring manager, they're your audience.
Right, you got to tailor your message.
Exactly. This AI tool, it takes all the guesswork out of it. It looks at the job description, figures out what the employer really wants, and then tells you how to highlight those things on your resume.
So it's not just about using the right keywords, it's about presenting yourself in a way that directly lines up with what they're looking for, like you're reading their minds almost.
Yeah. And that's huge now, especially with all those applicant tracking systems.
Yeah.
So many companies use those to scan resumes, looking for very specific things.
It's like having a secret weapon to get past the robots and land that interview. But then, of course, you got to actually do the interview. Does RoleCatcher have anything for that part?
Oh, yeah, they do. They have this whole database of interview questions all about copy editing. And not just general stuff. It's tailored to your experience level, even the specific industry.
So, like, if I'm going for a job at a tech company versus, like, a publishing house, I'd get different practice questions.
Exactly. And here's the thing I like best. They give you insights into what the interviewer is really trying to figure out with each question.
Oh, that's helpful. It's like having the answer key, in a way. What kind of insights are we talking about?
Okay, so say they ask you about a time you dealt with a difficult writer or a client. RoleCatcher might point out that they're not just looking for a good story. They want to see how you handle conflict, how you communicate, are you diplomatic, can you take criticism?
Oh, that makes so much sense. It's not just about having the right answer. It's about understanding what they're really asking.
Totally.
Yeah.
And get this, for their premium members, they even have AI feedback on practice sessions. You can record yourself answering questions, and the AI will analyze everything, your delivery, your content, and give you suggestions.
Wow, that's like next level interview prep, like having a coach in your pocket.
Right. And I think it just highlights something really important about this whole field. Copy editing, it's more than just grammar and punctuation. It's about understanding people, crafting your message, really connecting with your audience.
That's such a good point. Whether you're editing a manuscript or editing your own resume, it's about taking those raw skills and making them shine.
Exactly. And that's something for everyone listening to think about as you explore this field. What kind of impact do you want to have? The world needs good copy editors, maybe now more than ever.
What a great way to wrap things up. It's not just a job, it's a chance to shape how we communicate. And with that, we'll let you get back to your deep dive. Happy reading.